Hi, very nice to meet you all. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Montse Guardia, and I'm here with these three gentlemen to talk about something that is very critical and important for us nowadays, that is, of course, circular economy, and how blockchain is helping us to get a little bit faster, no? And to make the change with more sustainability. We were talking about that because I don't know if the word is sustainability or the word is economy or what is the word exactly. So we'll talk about what is going on in the regulation, if there is or there is not investment on this area, and technically speaking, where we are. So I'm just starting, and I will ask all of you, Jared, I will start by you. Just to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Can you all hear me? Yeah, great. I'm Jahed. I started a venture firm that's focused on regenerative finance, so it's great to follow a person who just gave a talk on regenerative finance. Good timing. Previous to this, I had a startup that was focused in the developer tool space. I sold that last year, and then I kind of looked around and said, what are the real opportunities to build technology either as a founder or as an investor? And I really just looked at the universe of possibilities here, and there's so many things to build, especially in the EU when you talk about circular economy. So I started this fund this year, and we're very much focused on the overlap between climate and crypto.
Thank you very much, Jared. We will talk later on that. So Firas?
Yeah, you can hear me well as well, right? Okay, perfect. So I'm coming from a different angle of the thing. So I'm coming from the design background of things. I'm an urban designer and at the same time more involved in the metaverse and the whole crypto world. And we're coming here representing a company that's trying to work across that blockchain and at the same time environment and at the same time energy production. So it's mainly a generator company, but at the same time driving economies and communities to be more decentralized and autonomous.
So finance, tech, metaverse, the deep
ecology,
tech, ecology,
design,
and now search in your case?
Well, oh my God, that's quite nice. Never get that feeling. So I don't know if I have to speak fast or if I have to speak slowly, to be understood. Anyway.
We have 35 minutes.
Slowly.
Serge Conessa, founder of Immersion 4. Immersion 4 is a company which is cooling electronic with liquid, meaning anything which is related to an electronic component, is cooled today by air, which is causing 20% of the world energy and 10% of the greenhouse and 3 trillion liters of water. And those are the forecasts for 2025. If we look the way we can do it, we can use a thermal conductor or liquid that we invented, and we can reduce the energy consumption at 4%, zero greenhouse, no CO2, no water consumption. So basically, let's cool electronic with Immersion 4 liquid in our system, and let's keep air and water for the biodiversity and ourselves because we need it. In other way around, the company is built 100% on circular economy. So we are building and creating production plants and labs all around the world.
Thank you very much. I'm very impressed. I will start, and let me just, I'm sure that the audience will be with me, bear with me. It's like, what about investment? No? So doing what you do, Serge, right now in this context, global context, no? where we are looking after the challenge, the climate challenge, why the people is not talking more about that? Why we are still not having in the big newspapers, this is the economy, circular economy, there is companies like yourself that are doing all the cycle. Why do you think that we are not so seeing that in the press day to day?
Well, what do you want? You want me to give you a polite answer, or you want me to give you
my
answer?
Please,
No.
Well, because the world is bullshit.
Yeah.
So 10% of the economy is only dedicated to circular economy.
Yeah.
Now, when you want to do circular economy, you have to understand that also you have to play with all the laws and regulations and all the policies in every single government. So that could be challenging. Challenging to create a company, challenging to finance it, challenging to import the materials, to export the materials, and then after that to import and to export the goods when they are done. Then you apply on the top of that all the legality, talking about, I will say, the terms and conditions, the VAT, and so on and so forth. This is basically the biggest show blocker for circular economy. I'm 100% to give back. We need to give back. Today I'm hearing there is a COP26, there's a COP27. Can we stop talking?
Yeah.
Seriously.
So
Ju-
that's
and
the
I'm-
challenge.
In one sentence, very simply in one sentence, there is technology solution in the market. Many, we are one of them. But there is one solution that each of us is having, and no one want to talk about it because no one make money out of it. It's called eco-conservation. For example, emission force save on the 20% of the world economy, on the world energy, lapsus, we are talking about 2,100 nuclear plants. We are reducing the electricity consumption on data center worldwide if you apply our technology to 4%. Basically, we are saving 1,500 nuclear plants. No one talk about that. This is the biggest source of energy in the world.
Yeah.
World Nuclear Association at 1,000 nuclear plants to be planned. This bullshit. Why this is bullshit? Because if right now you give all the money in the world, all the people in the world, all the resource, the material to build 1,000 nuclear plants, they will be ready in 15 years. In 15 years, we will be 1 billion people because the planet growth at 1 billion every 13.7 years. So it makes no sense. The only way we can do it is reducing that. Then the challenge becomes, how can we have every single component part of the circular economy based on the product that you're doing to be sure this is the main product to be built in Hong Kong, in China, in Barcelona, or France, or Japan, or wherever. But, well, blockchain authentication, traceability, finding the things at the right place. Now is your call.
You're completely right.
I can
Please-
linger on that a
Can I
bit.
Please,
comment on
Jared,
this?
go ahead.
I completely agree on the bullshit side of this because, look, like you said, we're in COP27. This is the implementation phase, right? But like, we're going to
For
come out of
15
this.
years.
Yeah, for 15 years, right? And I think you're 100% right, Serge, on just what you're calling bullshit here, because one of the problems with the economy is that it has this notion of externalities, which the previous speaker who was talking about regenerative finance this is exactly what regenerative finance is about. It's about internalizing the externalities into a circular economy so that you have an actual understanding of the inputs and outputs, right? Right now we just go and say, well, what about environmental degradation? There's no cost to it, right? Like it's in the public sphere. It's not priced, it's not a part of the system, right? So that, I think, if you want a circular economy, you actually have to be able to point to something like that and say, what is the input of not just cutting down trees, but their contribution in terms of oxygen, biodiversity, all the other things that they do, right? So we don't have that, so we don't value it, right? And so we don't have a circular economy.
I think we
So,
have it.
yeah, there is something, let me just highlight for the audience, no, that you are talking about completely redesign, no, of how you exchange value.
Exactly.
And this is why, no, this makes sense,
Yeah.
blockchain as a tool. So what, for
No,
sure.
there's a lot of things to define here. So first of all, there's the way we generate energy is something that is very different between having something that's centralized or having microgeneration between communities that are able to generate at various scales. And this is something that Soleolico is made for because of its medium scale size. So it works at the building scale where tenants and developers can have houses that save on energy. It works at the block scale where you have micro communities doing that. Works at the urban scale, which is a neighborhood scale or a city scale. And then at the same time, it can be used by governments, developers, investors, and people at the same time. So this brings the whole conversation into a place of what makes a community, and at the same time, what defines it and what good can that bring, right? So how we look at things is that community needs to have a kind of common vision, at the same time have independence between elements in the community, but then there's a certain dependence that you can not run away from, right? And then we break it down to like 5 things more or less, which are what the guys were commenting on, which is not just the environment and wanting to do it, but there's a big thing in policy making and decision making, right? So all the policy regulations and laws and these is something that we definitely claim to be working towards redefining. But then there's all the layers of ecology with the help of the environment, the financial layer, which is very important, And that's where mainly blockchain can come in, right? In terms of traceability, the bidirectional interaction between giving people access to the market of the energy, so the energy market, people can have access to it, and then you facilitate like two-way conversations between investors, consumers, and then that's where the word, for example, prosumers comes from. For everyone becomes a consumer and the producer at the same time, where you can either consume your energy, store it in batteries, or sell it back to the grid.
Completely right. You are coming. A lot of you have talking about it is about a common view, no? And this is something, Serge, that you have been, of course, no? Let's talk about evangelization, about talking about others, because if we want to share a common view, we need to share common understanding, no? Of what is the change of value. And also after that, of course, there is a disruption that will happen with policy making and with having this new regulation, no? Between all of us.
And decision making, which
and
is
the
very important.
decision making, the governance. I wanted to talk to you, and this is a question for Serge, because you started. So what about governance, no? What about governance? How, because the blockchain is working as a tool, no, as something that helps, but how we all together get into a consensus, no, and get a common view, because this is necessary for this climate emergency. No, we are in a climate emergency for sure.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you for your participation, if you don't mind. Can I have your bottle of water? No, the water. The bottle.
Oh, yeah.
This.
Yeah.
Are you guys drinking champagne? Come on, don't leave me alone. Okay, en español. ¿Para beber la bebida en champagne? ¿Cerveza, sangría?
Nunca.
La misma? Okay. Well, imagine this is a glass of champagne, and you want to cool that champagne. What do you do? Are you going to cool off the entire room? Or are you just going to cool off the champagne itself? Come on, guys, don't leave me alone.
Hands up, hands up.
¿Qué pienso? ¿En el bolsa o toda la casa?
La bolsa.
Okay. Well, you're very shy today. Or maybe you don't understand my French-English accent. Thank you. So obviously, you're going to cool off the champagne. Makes sense. If we cool the champagne, we stay in bathing suit, we sip the champagne, and this is nice. When we cool the entire room, we basically, I would say, will be totally frozen to death before this will be even chilled. Well, if you cool an entire room, it's a data center. If you cool the champagne, it's immersion 4 to the electronics, just to give you things. I want to highlight that principle because it's a very important principle. It's called eco-conservation. Eco-conservation, unfortunately, and I'm sorry about that, finance world doesn't recognize that. Why do we have to think about eco-conservation? Because at 2 billion people, the planet is fine with plastic bag. 8 billion people, plastic bag is not anymore okay. So we need to have the waste to energy to be back into consideration. Applied then in that case, who's making the money? Because policies are based on money. So basically, you can take that, I will say, on the higher level and take a look at, I will say, socialism and capitalism and say, well, what the two things okay to be put together? Then after that, I will say, the problem with traceability. When you look, I will say, completely what I'm talking about here is we need to go back to the world where saving things is recognized as a value. Because we are on game over game, the way we go. We are at the end of a system. It's already over. And now what we need to know is we need to find, I will say, our repair right and left in order to know how things are going to be done and to find the traceability and to find the connectivity between everything to be able that everything can puzzle up together because the tax system is on the top related to policy, related to investment corporation. And that's basically what is missing today. That's where, on my side, I hope that blockchain is going to be that link, federating everything. The biggest problem we have is when we look at those economies, there is a change. The system doesn't like to change. So we need to force the system to change. It's a matter of survival, one decision at a time. And I'm supposed to go to the COP27 and I refused to get there. The reason is very simple. For me, I'm tired to hear, we can do it, we will do it, 2030, 2050, come on. There is companies who are doing the COP26 yesterday.
Yeah.
And those companies are not even helped. My company is privately funded. Free runs on friends and family. no formal investors. That's what we did. I'm going to be stopping very quickly. I don't want to take too much.
I'm very interested.
But-
So for all the audience, the eco-conservation, and let me just pick up what you say about the friends and family and the investment, because this is something that I wanted to ask to Jared, because I know you have something to tell us about that, no? How we face investment, and we will come back because I think all the audience was very clear, and thank you for your explanation on this concept around the eco-conservation and the need that every individual participates, because it's a general concept around. So about this investment, about how you start a new business, talking about circular economy, talking about changing mindsets, who is investing in something that is so much change and so less early return, no? How we do that?
Well, I think that, like full stop, if you don't get investors involved in climate, it's basically done, right? Like I gave a talk on this at SBS, Sustainable Blockchain Summit, just last month, where when you look at things like the carbon markets, they're really just a place that people hold a gun to your head and say, you're in a shitty industry, you need to buy this, right? And so the perspective of corporations is, great, we'll buy it in the very minimum and we won't do anything with it, right? Whereas if you had some kind of functioning market here that enabled them to participate with risk capital that they got a return on, that's honestly the only way that this form of complex society we have is going to survive. If it doesn't, I mean, we already said bullshit, so I don't know if we can say we're fucked, but we pretty much are, right? Because you look at the numbers that we need by mid-century, you need something like 10 gigatons of carbon captured. When you look at the price per ton and the way that these things, and I'm only talking about carbon right now, and it's not only about carbon, but I'm just simplifying it, right? When you think about climate finance, you need something like $22 trillion by 2050 to be deployed in these solutions. And everyone's standing around going, well, nature-based solutions are going to be worth more in the future, so I should buy those now. Direct air capture is going to be cheaper in the future, so I won't do anything. And that is dead wrong, because we'll be dead by the time people do direct air capture, right? So my point with this is that when I look at climate finance and who's investing in circular economy, we have to create the conditions for people to get some kind of return, or there will be, everyone is going to sit with a bunch of stuff on their balance sheets and do nothing. And we'll have more cops where nothing happens, basically. And, but I do think that you need to be comfortable with smaller returns. Because you look at the size of these markets that don't exist, like if you wanted to price, you look at ecosystem services, right, that are inputs to the economy. Economists have been looking at this question for decades, and they say that the input of the natural world as an input to the economy is anywhere from $16 to $54 trillion a year. And we just kind of write most of that off as an externality. We don't price it, we don't price its impact either, and we just assume it'll be there forever. And that's what we have today, right? So if you think about the size of these markets that could exist in natural assets, you can come in and take a tiny, tiny piece of that, bootstrap a digital community around its ownership, decentralize it to that community, and not actually own it in the long term. To really just be more of like, I guess the term would be a fire starter, kind of? You come in and you start it, and then you get out of the way. That's really the only kind of space I could see finance having to play in the system.
There's a lot of things to talk about here, yeah, for sure.
So we're thinking, no, just to come back on what you were saying, no, we need to think on little returns, but sustainable little returns. No? Like in several years, you are getting your little return, but that also is making a big impact, because we are helping all together to achieve this, of course, these sustainable development goals, no, in this case, but little returns.
No, but there's a problem between like defining values, because that's something we were talking about before, which is the difference between financial systems and economics, right? So if you want to think about it that way. To cut a tree, it might cost you like 100 euros, right? To plant a tree, it costs much more. This doesn't mean that cutting a tree is cheaper and is better, because cutting a tree, if you have a different...
But that's exactly what it means in the current financial system,
yeah,
right?
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So people need to understand, how we put in our values defines what we value in the end, right? So if I value more having a green economy or like better environment in 30 years, then I want to plant a tree, and that's a cheap investment. If my value is having more space to make like places to plant food, right, then I want to cut the trees. So the financial model suggests the first one where it's fast profit, kind of safe investment, and then it's very short term, right? What he's talking about is something that is more understandable, more towards the community. It's long term, but the problem is, I mean, governance models and policy making is not made to make it, to incentivize it in a way.
Yes.
And this is something that I was talking to about with a person who is at the moment tokenizing the biggest lithium mine in Chile, right? And this is a really, really nice example of how such a natural resource can be tokenized, and then you open it up to people who understand the industry, who understand this. You open it up to stakeholders who come from community, industry, management, and then the whole supply chain is changing. So this is one thing, but I wanted to comment on something that you said, which is community, right? So I think one of the main things about communities is what bonds the community together. And then I think regarding to governance as well, it's impossible to create a community without having people feel that they're contributing. So if you're not contributing, it's virtually impossible to feel that you're part of this community. You want to feel that you're contributed to, so this community is giving you something, but at the same time, you have the capacity and the position to give back, right? And that's what prosumers are about. So people who can have devices where they can produce their own energy, sell back to the grid, create this community, but at the same time access energy from other people and then interact on the grid. And then this will give them, I mean, more strength in terms of their decision making. And then once we talk about tokenization, the whole governance model is changing. I mean, with energy DAOs, energy communities, which is something that we're working on, creating an app where people can monitor everything, sell and buy, trade with energy tokens instead of something else. So this is exactly what
I really like that the three of you are coming back, no, to the same approach, no, the same, let's say, the same view of having a common vision, having a community of givers, but doesn't mean giving everything. It's giving to return little by little a benefit, so we can make the community sustainable, and with the community sustainable, the world sustainable. That's really interesting. But I will say it's not so easy to implement. We can implement it without technology like blockchain. So how the technology is helping to make it happen, no? Because the community needs to be a large community to make the change. So do you think that, let's make the question, do you think that the possibility to have blockchain technology, no, the capability to have this type of technology in the latest stage is helping us, or is helping to really implement the type of digital, the economy, the circular economy that we are talking about? Is that enable? The technology is an enable?
Yeah, I think the key word is empowering people and empowering communities to give them more hands-on on what they can own and what they can give back, right? I mean, I think that's the main issue there. But a device like the one we're talking about, like the Soleolica device, this is something that you can really buy, a person can buy, or a building and put it there, then they have control over their houses, then they can literally be off-grid, right? This is something a developer can buy and put it on a building, so then they can raise the value of their apartments and sell them as houses that don't need to be on the grid. This can be something that happens at the neighborhood scale with communities. At the city scale, then you get to legislators and governments, and then at the national scale, right? So this can be something that you can put on top of high-tension towers and then give whatever is missing from the feed that you get from the fossil fuel industry, right? So it's definitely an active balance, but then it's a power game between what you were saying, because you can do this, but who will allow you to make it? And then what is the impact, right? Because if you deploy nuclear energy, as you were saying, like why don't we then do nuclear energy plants in every building? This is possible, right? And at the same time, it's possible to make one huge centralized one and give a whole city. But then who decides that? Who has the power to do that? And how many people you're going to leave without work, and how many politicians will run out of their job?
Just remove the nuclear energy part of me, because I'm against. just to be clear. Can we do a nuclear plant for city? Yes, called thorium.
Exactly. Yeah.
So thorium existing, but you don't do nuclear weapon with thorium. So that's another story. Well, let's go back. I will say on what you're saying. I will say, because for me, I see blockchain as a tool.
Yeah.
And in fact, there is 4 things which are important that each of us can make that decision. First of all is, when we want to create a company based on circular economy, it's all about the product. how we're going to be designing the product in order the product to be sell, to be reproduced, to be engineered, okay, anywhere around the world. And these go for simplification, which, like Leonardo da Vinci said, this is the ultimate sophistication. So we go back to the product. The second thing is behavior. It's a wish to want it to do that. It's a behavior because you don't have to think that there is policies, there is government, there is help who can help you to do that, because there is nobody who can help you to do that. I can tell you Immersion 4 was built on my own money, friends and family money, no investment, no whatever funds, grants existing in the world. We got nothing. Why? I don't know, doesn't matter. We did it. I have a kid. I'm looking at my kids every night. I want to do good for his life. The third is the product I'm going to be building and the company I'm going to be building, what is the impact of it biodiversity-wise? Am I harming the biodiversity? My product is 100% recyclable, 100% biodegradable. No use, no natural resources, no air, no water. We make that choice at the beginning. That's simple when you put all of this. And the fourth is, what do we want to do? We need time, which is what the planet doesn't have right now. Time, we don't have it. We all know, and let's be clear, it's game over. But we cannot accept that because we have kids. So we need to entertain the hope, and to do it, we know that we're going to go to a very rough path. And this is what's coming for the next decades. But if we don't start to do it and trying that we do it for good, then finished. That means social services issues and with on and so forth. When I see blockchain help to balance the four things that we have. I hear about biodiversity, I hear about authentication, I hear about traceability, I hear about policy, I hear about authentication. How can we be sure this is a trusted source, decentralized? That's the way I see blockchain on my side regarding OSAT Immersion 4. And I will just say one more word. Biodiversity is everything. We are one species out of billions. Social responsibility, I cannot stand that word anymore. Don't talk to me about this. If you respect the social responsibility, you respect the ants, the flies, everything's the plant, because you understand that without them, we are nothing. We took everything for granted. I remember in the year 2000, it was a group called Midnight Oil. They had a song, Planet Are Burning. And there is a little sentence they said, and I never understood that. I remember at the time, the people said, well, they are financed by the Russians, and this is blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. Sentence is, our beds are burning. It's time to pay the rent. It is time to pay the rent. Everything we have right now, everything we use all over us, is being given by Earth. We didn't pay anything back, and time is coming.
Midnight Oil, Aussie music group from the 80s, 90s, I think. And if there is here, I think Kim Matinero, by the way, I really recommend them follow Kim in the LinkedIn. He's always associating a sound to a change or to a news in the blockchain world. What you were saying, Serge, is about behavior, is about commitment, is about society. So what is this society that we are building and we are having in our communities? And I wanted to take your words to come back to the digital space. So we talk about blockchain, of course, but we talk with Firas on metaverse. I'm sorry, I need to use the word. Help me on that. We need to talk about this new digital space that we are building. Of course, we are hearing a lot about this metaverse, of course. And I wanted to ask you about that in the future, no? In the common future, in the next one. What is the link between this blockchain and all these behaviors that we need to have to embrace with all this new digital world we are building? How they are connected?
No, for sure. So the first thing is to understand that metaverse is not something that is else. It's, for me, it's very physical. It's rooted into a very strong physical thing because all the virtual stuff is media and all media is rooted in a very physicality. So that's number one. So the way we look at it is an extension and a new layer, which is digital on top of our life, right? So what you can do there is technically everything you can do here related to financing, identity, interactions, society and stuff. But I want to linger one word about what you were saying. So what we're doing now is I mean, obviously shifting from the word sustainability to ecology, because that's what makes sense from the product itself to the scale of cities. So we talk about ecological urbanism and then how a device like this can change how we create neighborhoods and cities. But at the same time, one thing that we're doing in terms of the design, and I'm leading that, so that's why I'm talking about it, which is creating the device itself to be bioreceptive. So the device is not only contributing to an ecosystem or an ecology by its carbon footprint and generating energy renewably and all these things, but at the same time, the design itself is bioreceptive, meaning that the design is made in a way that it's inviting life into it. So organisms can grow and can like live on the whole tower of the thing. So it's a big windmill. It gets energy from wind and it gets energy from solar panels. So that's number one. So to go back to the metaverse, like what you can do there is literally all the four things he was saying. So everything related to interaction, everything related to you have control, track, and transactions between you and your peers. And then you can monitor all this there, you can have control over it, you can sell energy and use it as your credit. So instead of, like you can have part of your credit which is coming from your social contribution in the energy community, and then that would be an energy token that you can actually interact with other people with, right? And then if you're part of this community, we were just talking about this as well, which is virtual communities, because communities are not only people who live in that place and have that energy production at the micro level, it's at the same time when new people who are not living there, right? Stakeholders who are investors, who are believers or backers, these people become decision makers indirectly if that community is tokenized, right? And these guys become virtual community. And then the way we see that is through metaverse applications, through blockchain.
So we will have these virtual communities, hopefully with the search point of view, like eco-conservative, and disconnected with the real physical world.
Yeah, we don't go conservative. We go pro-ecology. We don't.
Perfect.
Right. Like that's how we look at it. I mean, personally, I'm out of the whole thing of nature will fix itself and then we do whatever. This ends up in people living in the city dumping garbage somewhere else, right? We don't work with this model. What we work with is ecology, understanding that all these things are there. We have the capacity. We are ecology as well. We are part of this ecosystem and we are nature. So we can actually manipulate these resources. For us, waste or garbage doesn't make much sense because that's another material resource or immaterial resource that we can then deploy in, right?
Definitely a new way of thinking in cities, no? It's completely coming together between digital and physical, no? Just we are joining and we are in a space that we share. Jared, we are going to have more companies, and more ideas, Let's say, people like Serge and Firas, how we incentivize, that from finance point of view, we need to, how we help whoever has the capability to make the change, to embrace the change. How we do it?
Well, I think I kind of mentioned this before, but I think that when you look at, maybe I misspoke before, but I think that these markets that don't exist yet in things like microgrid solar that then are federated and networked to other places, right? They can share resources, and when you do that, they become complex, interlinked, and there's almost an exponential increase in wealth between that results from this. So when you look at it as an investor, you should be comfortable taking smaller pieces of really, really giant things, right? I don't mean that it's going to be less returns, right? I actually think finance people won't stand for that, and they'll burn with the system. Full stop. That's just what's going to happen, right? Like people are going to be like, oh, I don't know if I don't really like accepting 22% IRR over 7 years. That's terrible. And then but you need to actually build new markets that we have not actually even seen. Like when Serge talks about biodiversity, there are a number of folks across the world who are building. This is another thing blockchains are. Have been proven to be good for are incentive systems around nature, right? So like, what don't we know about these things? Well, there's a group I'm going to pump their bags kind of. There's a group in Switzerland called Simplex DNA. There's a professor who left ETH Zurich to start this company. She's a biologist. And what she's looking at doing is basically incentivizing the collection of DNA biodiversity from specific areas around the world that have very little documentation about diversity and creating an economy around the collection and maintenance and conservation of these things, right? So, like, I think, yes, we invented money, and some of that has been really bad, but we have to actually look at the tool and say, can it be changed? Because it has to change. And if it can't be changed,
Let me,
kind of fucked.
let me highlight a fun project which is called NF Trees, right? So what this project is proposing is we give trees back financial decision making, right? So you cannot just go and pick up a tomato. A tomato will ask you to add credit to its wallet when you pick it, right? So that tree is obviously like in the financial system, it's tokenized, and then it's the idea of trying to define value to natural environments, trees, and whatever it is. And then that way, every time we go there to get something from it, there's a price to pay straight away, which is a financial model in the end, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, it's a speculative project that is more focused on making nature and plants more autonomous and getting them into the financial system, which I'm not very sure about, because what I think is instead of getting nature into the financial system, we should go out of it into a more economical model that it's ecological, right? So thinking more economy, ecology, rather than fast finance.
I love that, and also in this idea, just because here in Barcelona we are lucky to have futurist systems that they are working on Plantiverse.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
in the same
Barcelona
idea.
was the forest city, was voted the forest city last year as well.
So I think
Europe, yeah.
at least we are there to embrace the change. There is still there is 5 minutes. I will ask the audience if someone of you wants to raise a question, and I will translate it. As you say, I think I'm very happy because we are having here talking about, of course, circular economy, but we talk about ecologists. No, we talk technology embracing ecology and not making a difference there, and also about behaviors, about new things of exchange in value, and for sure about finance, no, and the possibility to do regenerative finance, no. So really, I think we are embracing everyone, no, to make the change. So, any question in the audience? If not, I will ask. None. Take an opportunity, right? No. Yes. Okay. So let me give you my mic.
Hi. In the past year, there was a rise in ecological parties, pretty much all over Europe, and I was wondering if you, particularly with your projects or the industry, sees this as an opportunity to work with these parties for legislation and for pushing, from a government perspective, these initiatives.
Thank you. So,
But
what
these are
is the
called-
relation with the
No, but-
political parties?
Yeah, these are
no?
called
If there is
green,
one who is ruling.
Yeah,
that.
they're called green parties, not ecological
The
parties.
green pa-
Yeah,
the green
green is a
party.
color. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I just relating the question.
No, no,
No, there is
obviously.
some political
I-
groups that they are
Yeah,
suggesting
maybe you
on
want to
that.
have a go on this, but like I mean, like fundamentally, there's two ways of looking at this. What we're talking about is bringing is power back to community, and at the same time, an interesting sweet spot between bottom down and top down approaches. So there's like strategic planning and tactical planning, and then this is something that kind of gives each party what can be done there, and then distributes the resources into this. I mean, personally, the way you look, I mean, politicians all do things not because they believe them, but because it gets them more power, right? I mean, we were all aware of this and we know how it works. So I don't really believe that you can be a green party, right? You can be a political party that has a vision, and that vision could be with ecology, but labeling yourself as green is not something I do as a hobby, I think.
Yeah, I was,
right? So
I was going to add to
I'm
this
an
too.
urbanist, and we do ecological.
I definitely want to add to this too, to say that like the nation states require cheap energy to project power and have any ability to actually run their country. Until we have cheaper energy of some sort, they will not stop using fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Full stop.
That's
so joining the system, I think, is fine. Working with those folks and making sure we're on the right side of the regulations is also fine. I don't expect to see any transformative change from them. I'll be very surprised.
Yeah,
I need to come back about the democracy for all. No,
No, there's this
so we
tension
need to
always.
we need to believe that we have some representative, no, on the
Yeah, there's-
governments, and that we are electing them, no?
I mean,
so
you
I
can.
need to
I
believe in,
don't.
no, I need to remind that.
The tension between market and values, right? So
Yeah.
you can
Yeah,
have
yeah,
values,
sure.
and there's the market.
In fact, when you speak about green parties and those kind of things, I like it, but for me it is noise. It's like COP26, COP27 is, well, let's make fun to all of you guys. At the end of the day, we are cooking, because that's the thing, we are cooking. I said we were on a 3.8 degrees C 2 years ago with the United Nations, they agree with me. They are still speaking 1.5 C.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
So we need to understand one thing. If we want to fight the system, we have to work with the system.
Yes.
What we do on our side, if I want to change a data center, this is a data center for me. I'm in every single standardization committee, making the change, making the rules, applying with the system. There is a very simple sentence. First, we get along, then we go alone. That's exactly what we do. That's the only way we can do it. The only problem we have, we are missing time.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, the bell is going to be ringing, like it is going to be ringing very soon for us here, but that's what it is. So let's do some things when we know we can do something, we can have a meanings, we can change some things for the good things that we need. Because at the end of the day, it's all we're going to leave behind. Yeah. When our time is over, there's no side pocket. And for Immersion 4, my strategy is to build the World Bank of Energy and to give Immersion 4 to the World Bank of Energy. Then it belongs to everybody, not to one. That's my wish. I will not make it. I know that. Yeah. But I will try everything to see that.
Oh, just one last thing. There's
Very last.
there's one thing to look at as well, because you can be green, but what do you mean by that, right? Because we see a lot of techno-skepticism in all this green thing, and it's very romantic, and then they want to make like nature back again, Mother Nature, and all these things, right? So if you're a green person who's techno-skeptic, then all what we're talking about doesn't make any sense for you, right? So there's a lot more positions to define beyond just being green.
And I need to close here. I'm sorry we are running out of time, but I will really thank you. It was very in-deep conversation, and I hope all the audience enjoy as myself, all the insights we have. The clock is running and is burning, but we are there to join together, no? To be community and to join and make maybe the suggestion for some new type of politicians that bring us as a democracy to be elected and to make this change. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and thank you to the audience.
Thank you.
yeah.